This is CBC Here and Now.
Running towards the fire. Healthcare workers in this province are heading to Ontario to fight COVID-19.
Looks like we have a team of 9 heading out tomorrow. And
we're very grateful for the help that we're receiving from Newfoundland.
Well, after a beautiful weekend, the rain has returned. In fact, we may break April's rainfall record.
I had a stroke before I was born. Now I got the opportunity to play hockey.
And this 11-year-old's journey to play hockey.
And the help he received from a professor at MUN.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Anthony Germain.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. Well, some people in central Newfoundland are upset with the provincial government for renaming Red Indian Lake without consulting local residents. Now, the new name chosen is Wantahoti Hespim, a Mi'kmaq word which translates to peaceful lake. Let's bring in Here and Now's Heather Gillis. So, Heather, many people agree the name should change, but some are upset about how it happened.
Yeah, that's right. Well, people both Indigenous and non-Indigenous in communities of Buckins Junction, and Millertown are feeling hurt, disrespected, and shocked that Red Indian Lake is being renamed because they say they weren't involved in the process.
There's really a feeling of being betrayed by the government.
Natasha Jones is from Buckins Junction near Red Indian Lake. She's an active member of the Halipoo First Nation and says she was shocked when she heard the province was renaming Red Indian Lake to Wantahoti Hespim, a Mi'kmaq word which translates to peaceful lake. It's because she says both Indigenous and non-Indigenous locals weren't consulted, which led to anger and hurt in nearby communities.
Racism reared its ugly head quite quickly, and lateral violence with community members attacking other community members, and there were some really unpleasant comments.
Jones is in favor of renaming the lake, but she doesn't think Peaceful Lake suits the area because it was the site of violence against the Beothuk nearly 200 years ago. She believes the new name should represent the Beothuk.
I just think the government misstepped by consulting just the top Indigenous leaders and not giving, a say to all residents or considering them as part of this process. Consultation would have went a long way. By kind of overstepping it, it really hurt community members, and they're turning against, I've seen them turn against each other. It's not nice.
The people consider this to be a very flawed process, and they have taken slight.
Buckins Mayor Jerome Corbett has written a letter to Premier Andrew Furey, Indigenous Affairs and Reconciliation Minister Lisa Dempster, his MHA and MP, formally objecting to the lack of local consultation. He says there's a significant Indigenous population in the area and says many of them wanted input into the process.
The fact that government did not consider that their views should be taken into account at all, I think that's really what's got people very, very upset.
He calls the situation not good enough and an opportunity lost for reconciliation.
If this is the pattern that government has set up, that there's no need to consult people, it didn't have to be a major consultation.
Now he worries about the lack of consultation continuing as other areas and monuments are considered for renaming. Meanwhile, Furey says they consulted leaders of the province's 5 Indigenous groups who consulted their members. He says it's up to them if they want to discuss a different name for the lake.
Well, it's final right now, but should they change, then I'm certainly willing to work with them to facilitate whatever they want, because that's the path that we need to walk about reconciliation. This has to be as much or more about them than it is what I want. That's a colonial approach that I'm not prepared to employ.
Well, Furey says this whole situation started when they were making plans to bury the remains of Beothuk who were repatriated from Scotland last year, and then the discussion turned to whether the name Red Indian Lake is appropriate. He says the discussion also turned to using a Beothuk name. He says he's going to have a call with Indigenous leaders tomorrow where this issue will probably be discussed. Live in the newsroom, I'm Heather Gillis.
Well, like I said earlier, it was a beautiful weekend across most of the province. We saw plenty of sunshine yesterday. Some cloud did move into the afternoon, but our next area of low pressure moved in today, bringing some pretty heavy rain down to the southwestern portion of the island so far. From what I can see, about 49 to 50 millimeters of rain has fallen, and that rain is about to make its way towards the Avalon. We've been talking about the how rainy it has been for most of April. There's the numbers. It's been, we've seen 229.4 millimeters of rain so far. That record is 260.2 millimeters. I cannot say numbers today, but that rain is going to move in. We're looking at some heavy rain through the night tonight, and it looks like that record is probably going to fall as we see probably 30 to 40 millimeters of rain on the way for eastern areas of the Avalon. Things are going to stay unsettled through most of the day tomorrow, but I'll get into those details coming up.
Thank you, Ashley. To Natwashish now, where human remains were found behind the Band Council garage. This is around 11:30 on Friday night. Police received a call that several abandoned vehicles there were on fire. Once the fires were extinguished, police found human remains inside one of the vehicles. The person's identity has not yet been confirmed. Anyone with information about the incident is asked to contact local police or Crime Stoppers, and you can do so anonymously. Well, convicted killer Brian Doyle has lost day parole. That ruling came down Friday after a parole board determined that Doyle had broken the conditions of his release for concealing a relationship with a woman. Well, tonight, the son of Doyle's victim says authorities had enough evidence to charge the man with first-degree murder, but that evidence was never brought forward. More than 30 years ago, Greg Parsons was wrongfully convicted of murdering his mother, Catherine Carroll. DNA evidence eventually cleared Parsons. Doyle was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 18 years without parole. Well, last spring, he was granted day parole. Before his retirement, the chief of police gave Parsons hours of undercover videotape, and in those secret recordings, Brian Doyle details the killing to undercover police officers. Doyle describes the weapon he used, how he carried out the crime, and how it felt to get away with it.
You see his true persona. So as he stated in the at the hearing, that he's a chameleon, like he's arrogant, he's narcissistic, but he's after telling so many lies, and because of the Mr. Biggs thing being transcribed, the parole board had the opportunity to see the real Brian Doyle, and they asked him at the hearing, "Who are you now? What Brian Doyle do we have here now?"
And more about that Mr. Big Sting video and my follow-up conversation with Greg Parsons, including how he's now appealing to local lawyers for help. That's in 25 minutes.
Well, we know more tonight about the plan to send healthcare workers to Ontario to help fight against COVID-19. The Premier held a news conference at the Confederation Building this afternoon to talk about it. Here and Now's Mark Quinn was there.
With more than 3,500 new cases in Ontario today and hundreds in intensive care, the province needs help. And Premier Andrew Furey says it's coming.
Should be on the ground in Ontario midday, Newfoundland time, and they'll get briefed there and get straight to work.
That team is made up of 9 healthcare professionals, including nurses and the Premier's spouse, Dr. Alison Furey. Another group of 9 is also expected to travel to Ontario from Newfoundland and Labrador for a total of 18. Not a huge number, but Furey says the province has a duty to help any way it can.
Look, we're all Canadians, no matter where you live across this beautiful country from coast to coast to coast. We're one family, and when you're in a time of trouble like this, we all need to step up and help, and Newfoundland and Labrador stepping to help with no strings attached.
At the Ontario legislature, where people are calling on the province to do more in the fight against COVID, the health minister thanked Newfoundland and Labrador.
So we're very grateful for the help that we're receiving from Newfoundland. There are other provinces that are offering PPE, and we're looking at maybe receiving some more people from some other provinces too. But we know that there are some provinces that are really struggling as well with COVID, so they need their own people. But we're grateful very much so for the help that we're receiving.
Furey said the healthcare workers will be called back if they're needed here at home, and was firm that this province will not be sharing vaccines with Ontario.
They need firefighters, not a fire prevention unit. We're using our fire prevention unit right here, right now, to prevent any fires. So we're sending firefighters there.
The team heading to Ontario is expected to leave here from the Torbay side of the airport first thing tomorrow morning. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, Andrew Furey says those healthcare workers will be stationed in downtown Toronto. And at that press conference today, the Premier also announced 4 new cases of COVID-19. All are travel related. That's a total of 9 new cases since Saturday. Health officials announced 5 cases over the weekend. 4 of those were related to travel within Canada, and 1 was a close contact of a previous case. And the health department issued travel advisories for anyone who traveled on Air Canada Flight 8016 that departed Montreal for St. John's last Monday and Tuesday, and travelers on Air Canada 8996 from Halifax to St. John's last Thursday. And also for ferry travelers, anyone who came across the Gulf on the Atlantic Vision last Wednesday on the night crossing should arrange for a test. Well, when it comes to being vaccinated for COVID-19, who is considered an essential worker? There's confusion in Western Labrador, where a mining company told its employees to get the shot, but it turns out they can't. Here now's Peter Cowan joins us live. So Peter, what's happening there?
Well, Carolyn, in Labrador, they are further ahead with their vaccinations than the rest of the province, so essential workers can sign up and get the shot. This includes people who had to go to work at alert level 5 and are either essential, like hydro workers or teachers, or who had to interact with the public, like grocery store clerks. So does that include mine workers? Well, Tacora Resources, which operates the iron ore mine in Wabash, thought so. It sent out a memo last week to its more than 300 employees saying they could book their shot, and many of them did. But they aren't. According to Labrador Grenfell Health, its website now very specifically says mine workers are not eligible for early vaccinations. So another memo had to go out on Friday, a copy of which was obtained by CBC News. Now, in that memo, it told employees, while we remain of the opinion that our employees are essential workers and should be vaccinated at the earliest possible opportunity, Tacora will follow Labrador Grenfell Health's interpretation of the special measures orders. So how did that mix-up happen? Well, the company says it was told by provincial public health that its workers qualified before the local health board told them that they're not. We asked the department about this confusion, but it didn't respond to several emails.
Hey, Peter, so what happens to people who booked their shot?
Well, they were told they're going to have to cancel. Labrador Grenfell Health wasn't able to say how many people have now canceled because of this. It says they will ask people when they arrive if they meet the criteria, but they're not requiring anyone to show proof, so you don't have to bring a pay stub. It's largely on the honor system. Anthony?
We're following up tonight on a story that we brought you last week. The president of the National Advocacy Group for People with Colon Cancer says changing the age for screening is important, but not so simple. This after a woman in Pasadena spoke out urging health officials to lower the cancer screening down below 45 years of age. Here now's Colleen Connors has this update.
Stephanie Budgell feels good today, but fought for her life this past year, battling stage 4 colorectal cancer and going through surgeries and treatments. It all started when she found blood in her stool and went to her family doctor for a colonoscopy. Doctors told her that more and more young people are getting it. The president of Colorectal Cancer Canada had it at 40 and says he's learning of people younger and younger getting the disease.
We have 2 22-year-old patients in the group.
Many Canadians are at risk.
His organization offers awareness and support and advocates for improved patient outcomes. The average age to start screening for colon cancer is 50. Budgell wants that lowered to 45.
We are a proponent of that, but as part of the National Screening Network in Canada, which is all the provincial programs, including Newfoundland and Labrador, the question from a public health point of view is cost effectiveness, because there's only about 1,500 people, or less than 1,500 people under the age of 50 each year diagnosed with the disease.
Stein says the best way to prevent more early sickness is to start with the first person of contact.
We want to create a toolkit for family practitioners so that they recognize the signs and the symptoms, and they don't turn away young patients who may be complaining about, what turns out to be colon cancer. And I think that's probably even more important than the screening in itself.
In speaking to a lot of my community, I guess, now, a lot of their doctors pass them off as being too young to have colon cancer, or their symptoms were something else, maybe Crohn's or colitis or something like that. So the average is like 4 or 5 appointments before they're referred to a specialist. I'd like to see that change.
Stein says there are two major factors for getting colorectal cancer. One, family history or genetics, and two, lifestyle. While eating right and exercising won't totally prevent colon cancer, it will reduce the risk. For Budgel, she didn't have any of these factors, but she did notice a difference in her gut.
Blood in your stool, or change in your bowel habits, or, like I said, a feeling in your tummy that's just not right, weight loss or tiredness. You need to seek additional, help.
Colleen Connors, CBC News, Corner Brook.
Well, there's a big tech deal to tell you about. A St. John's-based education startup has been sold to an American firm, Clockwork Fox Studio, which created a math app for children called Zorbit's Math Adventure. That company's been sold to Pennsylvania's Carnegie Learning. CEO Ed Martin says the company was sold for an undisclosed amount of money. Martin says the new company's Canadian head office will remain in St. John's, and they'll continue working on adding more French options to their app. They'll also create a new one called Mathstoria for children in grades 4 to 6. Tech NL CEO Paul Preston says that sale, as well as Verifin's sale in late 2020, bodes well for NL's tech industry. Meanwhile, the company was looking to distribute the app in the United States, but he says they fit so well with Carnegie Learning that they ended up being bought out. Problem solved.
We really discovered just how similar we were, just very philosophically aligned about technology and math teaching and learning, but also recognized we were tremendously complementary of one another in many ways as well. They had a digital product for 6 to 12 math. We were K to 3, building 4, 5, 6. They had a really good footprint in the U.S., wanted to get into Canada. We were the other way around.
Certainly bringing global attention to what's been going on here for a while. There is a real surgence of companies here that are developing and scaling and growing here with amazing intellectual property. So we're getting that global attention, and there's something unique taking place in our ecosystem. It has to do with talent. It has to do with the supports that we have here locally for these companies. But I would say in particular, it's the people that work there.
Pretty nice day, but some cloud cover has moved in now. Some rain is on the way tonight, which will be heavy at times. We'll get into those details coming up.
a look at the weather. And Ashley, I was thinking about you yesterday when I was out in the garden, and it was a perfectly beautiful day. You were dead on with that forecast on Sunday. That was a gorgeous day.
Everybody's happy when the sun is shining. We did see a little bit of cloud cover through central and other areas, but overall it was a beautiful weekend for the most part. Today, not so much. Temperatures were warm though. Let's take a look at the daytime highs this afternoon. 10 degrees in St. John's earlier today, and about 14 through central. The west coast a little cooler at about 11 degrees, and then we've hit the double digits across Labrador as well. Cartwright 12. Happy Valley Goose Bay sitting at 10 for most of the day. That temperature has dropped now, still sitting into the teens through parts of central, but St. John's has dropped down to 4 degrees now. We are going to see some rain move in. You can already see all that shower activity across most of the island. Starting to see a little bit of clearing, at least some relief down to the southwest, where about 50 plus millimeters of rain has fallen. Still under a rainfall warning. Still going to see some rain tonight, but not nearly as much as you saw this afternoon. Maybe another 5 to 10 millimeters. Otherwise, we will see that rain move in for the Avalon starting to so far for the southern portion, and as we head through the next couple of hours, that will continue. Taking a look at the watches and warnings right now, we have wind warnings all along the west coast. Wreck house wind warning in place. Gusts upwards of about 160 kilometers per hour continuing through the overnight tonight. And then areas prone to those southeasterlies on the west coast, you could see gusts upwards of 120 to 140 kilometers per hour through the evening tonight. Bonavista has now been added to that wind warning as well. And you can see gusts upwards of 80 tonight. Lots of moisture with this system all the way coming from the south. That will continue tonight and through the first half of tomorrow, which is why we're going to see some of that heavy rain. So taking a look at the future tracker, you can see that it'll continue to work its way north and east as we head through the overnight tonight. And then across Labrador, those temperatures mild now, but they are going to drop as we head through the overnight tonight. Going to see the potential to mix in with some snow for Lab West, even towards central Labrador as we head towards the early morning hours, with the potential for some snowfall, about 5 to as much as 10 centimeters of snow. Again, what does fall will be very wet, likely not seeing too much in the way of accumulation as it mixes with some rain, but that is certainly possible. And as far as temperatures go tonight, there you go, dropping down to 0 degrees for Lab City, 2 for Happy Valley Goose Bay, and then that wind will continue for the island. Eastern areas will see those winds pick up as well, 70, maybe 80 kilometers per hour in some of those exposed areas with those southeasterlies, and temperatures will be sitting somewhere between 3 to 7 degrees, a little cooler for the northern peninsula, about 1 or 2 degrees above zero. Through the day tomorrow, we'll see that rain continue for the most part for northeastern areas of the island. It'll eventually taper to drizzle as we head through the afternoon. May even see some clearing breaks through central. And then again, we're going to see the potential for that snow, continuing rain or snow through the afternoon for central Labrador, as well as the west and then northern areas as well, picking up some of that accumulation. That's where you're more than likely going to see the majority of that, certainly up through northern portions of Labrador through the afternoon. And then as we get into the evening hours and overnight, drizzle or rain will move back in again for the southwest. May even see a few flurries in the mix down for the southern portion. Here's the rainfall amounts. Like I said, maybe another 5 to 10 millimeters for the southwest, but the majority of that rain will be for eastern areas of Newfoundland. You're looking at about 20 to 40 millimeters of rain by the time that's all said and done. And temperatures tomorrow will be fairly nice, into the double digits again tomorrow, about 12 to 14 degrees through the east and central and the west coast, a little cooler for the southwest at 8 degrees for Port aux Basques, and you're looking at a temperature near 4 degrees for Lab City tomorrow, 8 in Happy Valley Goose Bay. Those winds will eventually ease, but they are going to stay breezy again for eastern areas with gusts about 40 to 60 kilometers per hour. Some of those exposed areas can see upwards of 80 kilometers per hour. So let's look at tomorrow's forecast. I'll get into the details for the long range coming up.
Well, Carter Burton has been wearing hockey skates since he was a baby. And this fall, the 11-year-old from Kings Point in central Newfoundland was finally able to sign up for minor hockey, but getting there wasn't easy.
Oh, it certainly wasn't. Carter has a disability and he needed some custom equipment so that he could play with the other kids. And as luck would have it, someone in St. John's was able to help. Our CBC radio colleague Ramraj Shrivendran, host of the St. John's Morning Show, has that story now.
Carter Burton is getting ready for the biggest game of his life. Actually, it's his first game in minor hockey. But Carter is cool, collected, and ready to hit the ice.
I would be a bit nervous. How come you're not nervous? You just excited or what?
Well, everybody that is coaching me knows that I got a bad hand, so they understand. We're gonna just have lots of fun, and there's gonna be games, but they're only gonna be against Central.
When Carter says he has a bad hand, what he means is he has a form of cerebral palsy, which affects his left hand.
Because I had a stroke before I was born.
Okay.
And stuff just happens.
Carter's left fingers don't fit into a normal, bulky hockey glove, but the protection those gloves provide is important. The budding forward needed an assist.
We basically design assistive devices for people with disabilities.
This is where Leonard Lai comes in, a professor emeritus at Memorial University's Faculty of Engineering and a volunteer with the Tetra Society in St. John's. Tetra custom makes equipment for people like Carter.
So all I know was that he had this special form of cerebral palsy, and he needs to modify the hockey glove. So maybe an easy way is to demonstrate that. So a glove would be something like that with 5 fingers, right? You need to put each of your finger in the glove. But his left hand, because of his cerebral palsy, he can't put the fingers in the glove. So basically what I have to do is find a pair of hockey gloves that fits him and then figure out how to convert this with 5 fingers into a mitt. That's basically what I did and what he needs, right?
All in all, the project took about 2 weeks. For Lai, working with the Tetra Society is a hobby, something to do now that he's retired. But for Carter, his work means so much more.
So just take a look. Carter had a message for you.
Oh.
Thank you a lot. And now I got the opportunity to play hockey because of you. I'm learning lots of new stuff because of him. Yeah. And I just love hockey.
What does that mean to you hearing that?
Well, like I said, I've not met him before, so to see his face and to see him really, really, really grateful, that's I think one of the reasons why we do this kind of things, right? I mean, is to make somebody's life a lot better, and so that they can do what they want to do, you know. That's one of the mission of Tetra, the Tetra Society, you know. So this definitely made my day, of course, right? You have to tell them that I'm so happy that it worked out, you know, and this is exactly what we are here for, to help people like this, right? And to see him so happy and to be able to make use of it, like I said, it definitely made a big difference, not just to him, but I would say to all of us who are volunteers, you know. And that's exactly why we're here. I mean, that's what we want to do, right? To make a big difference to somebody's life, you know, and the parents especially. Right?
Back in Springdale, Carter heads out on the ice for his first hockey game with all the other kids. With his new glove, he doesn't just fit in, he flourishes. In a few weeks' time, he'll be named Player of the Game, a stellar start to what promises to be a long hockey career. Ramraj Shrivendran, CBC News, St. John's.
There's a part of the video where Doyle is almost laughing about the fact that the police fingered you for the crime.
Absolutely. He gets glee, he got joy from it.
Anthony sits down with Greg Parsons, the St. John's man falsely accused of murder, who wants to see Brian Doyle stay behind bars.
Well, now to a follow-up on Greg Parsons, an innocent man who went to prison for killing his mother, Catherine Carroll, 30 years ago. At a parole hearing on Friday for Brian Doyle, the real killer, Parsons had to relive the crime that has ruined his life. After a botched investigation, former RNC Chief Bob Johnson gave Parsons hours of video from a 2002 sting operation. And it's evidence that Parsons insists proves his mother's murder was premeditated. Doyle is serving an 18-year sentence for second-degree murder. Now, when I met with Greg Parsons again today, I started by asking him about Friday's decision to revoke day parole from the man who killed his mother.
Well, we're very pleased that his day parole has been taken away. He should have never got it. He should have been convicted of first-degree murder, but the evidence now that we produce is now on his file for the rest of the time he's in jail, so they got the true story.
Now, his day parole was taken away because he lied about a relationship with a woman. We'll probably get back to that story in a couple of months, but let's go into this video that you got. Former police chief Bob Johnson, he contacted you. Now, we've done stories about Bob Johnson in the past about how sick he became later in life. Why do you think he reached out to you to give you this video?
Well, I really can't delve into speculate why he did, but it did concern him. He was actually police chief at the time, and he called me to his office. He told me that Brian Doyle was lying low, flying under the radar, and it wasn't right. And he released 3 discs to me. 2 were the Mr. Big, and the other one was his confession. But as I said, until the parole aspects came up, I never looked at it. And once I looked at it and I had it transcribed, I could see why he gave it to me. He wanted me to know the truth.
Now, this video, and why you're so upset about it, is because you claim the video shows that Mr. Doyle's murder was premeditated. What he did to your mother was premeditated.
Well, not only was it premeditated, it was in the commence of sexual assault, because he wasn't nude when he went in Mom's room. He broke in through the basement window, went up to my room, disrobed, took the knife in the room and jumped into bed with Mom. So that's the sexual nature, the premeditation of it. This should have went to a judge or a jury, and it's just a scandal. It's a cover-up.
I want to break it down because it's important for the audience to know that a Mr. Big scam is one in which the police pretend to try to bring somebody, in this case Mr. Doyle, into their confidence as if they're organized criminals.
Yes.
And they got Mr. Doyle talking about things that he had done or might be willing to do, including what happened with your mother. There were 3 things that you highlight. One is he took his clothes off before he got in bed with your mother because he didn't want to have any blood on the clothing, right?
Exactly.
That's on the tape.
Yes.
The other is the fact that with the murder weapon.
The murder weapon. He took the murder weapon he brought it to the bedroom with sex on his mind.
So he had the knife, took off his clothes. Tell me about the shoes.
Well, the shoes, where's the proof that he was even intoxicated? He was at a large for 12 years. I had an alibi that night. I gave my alibi and there was a 5-month trial. Who's to say that he was intoxicated? Where is the witnesses' statements from that party? I suggest that there is none. He was at that party that night. He said after midnight he had sex on his mind. He took a pair of shoes from the party. They weren't mine, he says in Mr. Big Sting. Took him 10 minutes to walk over, commit the crime, 2 hours to clean up, hide the knife, feet from where the search pattern is from the RNC, and he returned back to that party, and he says he lied down and took a nap so he could establish his alibi. None of this was addressed in the agreed statement of facts by Kathleen Healy. So in my mind, this is criminal, and I feel it should be criminally investigated. She was an officer of the courts. She had an onus on her to present the full package to that judge.
So Greg, the video shows what Doyle did with these shoes. So tell me about the shoes, because it looks as though he deliberately took shoes that were much bigger than his foot size.
He did. When he left the party, he took bigger shoes. He says that he put on extra socks. So there's a lot of planning went on into this. He put on extra socks, took someone else's shoes to turn them off. I actually got the pictures home of where he came in through that window, and the footprint is on a piece of white cardboard. He then committed the crime. He then went back to the party, returned the shoes, and lied down to take a nap for an alibi.
Now, and this is where the shoes become important, because this is where you contend, and the sting on the video indicates that he was creating an alibi by going back to the party where people were intoxicated, right?
Absolutely. absolutely. And in the judge's sentencing, the judge, Justice Green, says that one of the factors that he gave him second was that he went right home after it that night. Now, it does say in the Green statement of facts that he returned to the party briefly. There was no mention about the fact that he lied down. It was all hand-picked evidence. The true package was not put out there.
But these things taken together in the video, the decision to bring the murder weapon, the decision to take off his clothes, the decision to have fake shoes that weren't his shoe size, and the decision to go back to the party, this is why you think first-degree murder is what should have happened.
Absolutely. And not to mention, Ab Singleton sat with him a few days later.
The police officer, yeah.
The lead investigator in my case, and he spoke to Brian Doyle. And at that time, Brian Doyle framed me. And he jokes about it in the Mr. Big sting, how Greg had nothing really to do with the song. I played the drums on it and threw in a few lyrics. But it just goes to show how close they were to the actual killer.
There's a part of the video where Doyle is almost laughing about the fact that the police fingered you for the crime.
Absolutely.
What was it like for you to actually see that part of the video?
It tears at me. He gets glee. He got joy from it. The beauty of watching the Mr. Big sting, the beauty of it is you see his true persona. So as he stated in at the hearing, that he's a chameleon. Like he's arrogant, he's narcissistic, but he's after telling so many lies, and because of the Mr. Biggs thing being transcribed, the parole board had the opportunity to see the real Brian Doyle, and they asked him at the hearing, "Who are you now? What Brian Doyle do we have here now?"
There are parts of the video that are particularly disturbing, in which Doyle describes the murder scene, right?
He does.
How did you manage to actually read that into the record on Friday?
My wife and I have endured so much now for 31 years. I'm at a point in my life now, I'm never going to give up on this. It doesn't envelop me, and it's not my whole life. But right now, I see an end to this, and my goal is just to get this story out. I want to get it out on Netflix or some big media, or get it out in a good book form. I want the whole story from start to finish, and it's not for vengeance or anything like that. It's that it was such a huge mistake and improprieties that we have to learn from this, and we have to fix it. Our justice system is in turmoil here, and I don't have to mention other cases, and I'm not going to, but it's time for the Canadian government to step in here and have a look at this prosecution's office.
I just want to challenge you on one thing. Sometimes when these cases come before lawyers, they say, you know, we have this horrific murder, we made a huge mistake in taking Mr. Parsons and putting him in prison. Doyle's going to plead guilty to this, and we can put him away for 18 years.
Yes.
Now, we could go to trial and try to get him for first-degree murder, but what if we lose? And it's better to take the 18 years. What do you say to that?
Oh, well, I put it to this. I was charged with first-degree murder, and the second-degree murder option was there, and that's what the jury picked. It should have been there the exact same way. And I challenge any jury to look at this evidence. I know that he would have been correct. I'm 100% sure he would have been convicted. They had his DNA. They had him saying that he framed me. They had him describing the crime in detail. Even if they threw out the Mr. Big evidence, they still had him hands down. I think he should have been charged first degree.
So final question, as you sort of said in this interview, you're trying to get on with your life, but I can't help but notice that after what happened on Friday in the parole hearing, when he had his day parole taken away, now there's another hearing in 90 days. So do you have to go through this again in a month and a half?
I do, but we've got all the heavy lifting done, my wife and I. And basically, I'm only going to speak to a couple of facts that he brought up in the hearing. He's bringing up more garbage about having a relationship with my mother, and I'll address that at that hearing, but it won't take me more than an hour to write the next impact statement, and I'm ready for the next hearing. And as I said, thank God all this evidence is on his permanent record, so when these two new hearing people come in to look at it, they'll have all the evidence in front of them.
All right, Greg, it's good to talk to you. Unfortunately, it looks like we're going to be talking again in 90 days, but I appreciate you coming.
No problem. Thank you.
Now, Greg Parsons says because of the pandemic, it's difficult to connect with people in person, and he doesn't believe justice has been done yet, as you can tell. And he says if there's a lawyer watching who has some advice to give him, he'd like to talk. And Greg Parsons says he's reachable through Facebook Messenger.
Welcome back. The COVID-19 outbreak in Nova Scotia continues to grow. Let's take a look at the latest numbers. There are 66 new cases there today. Most of those are in Halifax, but other areas are starting to see cases as well. Schools are closing in the Halifax area. There are now 323 active cases in Nova Scotia. In New Brunswick, there are 7 new cases. There's also an outbreak at a residence at the University of New Brunswick in Fredericton, and officials have confirmed the first case of the variant that originated in India. There are 122 active cases in total, and there are 2 new cases on Prince Edward Island today for a total of 11 active cases.
Members of an Ottawa family are sounding the alarm about the dangers of COVID-19 following a family tragedy. Joan and Brian Emerson died of the virus just 4 days apart. Both of them were in their 70s, and they've been married for more than 54 years. Robin Miller has the story.
This is the cool guy. 1968. Look at that.
With Joan and Brian Emerson, there is no shortage of memories. Married 54 years, they are described as the glue that held a large extended family together, making it that much harder to say goodbye.
We actually said we're not ready, and we will talk to you again in 5 days.
Yeah.
That's what we told her, and that's what we were hoping for.
But after being intubated, Joan Emerson didn't wake up. She died April 10th inside the intensive care unit at the Queensway Carleton Hospital. 4 days later, her husband, Brian Emerson, also succumbed to COVID-19.
They were scheduled for their vaccination on the 9th of April. Had they had it, say, 3 or 4 weeks before that, none of this would likely have happened.
Just before the Easter long weekend, the couple had been feeling unwell, but they lacked the telltale signs of COVID. No fever or cough, mostly stomach issues and fatigue. But when Kathy Emerson went to pick up her parents and take them to their COVID test on the Sunday, she had to call an ambulance. Her father could hardly stand, and her mother, who had chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, was barely conscious. Upon arrival at the hospital, Emerson went immediately to the ICU. Her husband followed shortly after. The family says when he found out his wife had to be intubated, his health deteriorated.
He worsened and probably didn't have the same fight in him, and probably died of a broken heart, more so than the disease.
To make matters worse, the couple's son was also sick with the virus. He's now out of hospital and recovering, but the family understands just how quickly the virus can take hold.
At this point, the hospitals are so overrun with people that, like our family, that they're trying to save. They don't have time for you to get in a car accident or to break your leg or, anything else.
There's been too many family tragedies in Canada, around the world, so take care of yourselves, take care of your families, and be careful.
Robin Miller, CBC News, Ottawa.
An Edmonton mother wants justice for her 14-year-old son. He was so viciously attacked by a group of students, the boy had to spend a night in hospital. CBC has agreed to withhold the family's last name and a warning. There is video of this attack, and some will find it disturbing. Jordan Omstead has more.
Pazzo spoke to us a week after a racist attack left him bloodied and bruised and with a concussion. The memory of his night in hospital still hazy, the vicious attack still haunting.
That made me afraid to wear my own skin.
It happened in this field just behind where I'm standing now. Pazzo, a grade 8 student at Roslyn Junior High, was leaving school to go catch a bus. That's when a group of students chased and tackled him to the ground. The boys called him the N-word and made monkey sounds at him, Pazzo says.
I could not remember the day. I couldn't remember that much, and my head really hurt and my neck.
Pazzo says his attackers are friends with a student who threatened him last year and was expelled for it. When similar threats escalated this month, Pazzo was fearful, staying home for 2 days. When he returned, his fears came true.
It was not right, and it was not supposed to happen. And the school should have done something.
I think I'm going to get justice with my son.
This weekend, the school said Students involved in the assault have been held accountable, but it won't say what that entailed, citing privacy laws. Advocates say the incident reaffirms the need for continued anti-racism education for staff and students.
We don't want a 10-year plan. We don't want a 5-year plan. It has to be in these next upcoming months to a year. Otherwise, we know it's just performative, and we're not here for that anymore.
Police say they are investigating, but the family is upset with how they questioned Pazzo, saying the officer pressed him on whether he had started the fight. The family has stopped counting on the school for support, turning to community groups as they consider their next steps. Jordan Olmsted, CBC News, Edmonton.
Well, we're going to get to the weather in just a moment, but first, Ashley, the full moon this month is extra special because it's a super moon. It's going to be bigger and brighter this month because it's closer to Earth.
Yes, and it's also called a super pink moon because it lines up with this time of year when phlox flowers bloom.
Interesting. So it's not the actual color of the moon.
No, it's not. This is the sky over Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia. Unfortunately, the skies don't look favorable here to see the pink moon tonight.
Oh, well, if you can't catch it, not to worry. You can catch The next supermoon, it's happening next month.
Yeah, beautiful there. We did see that moon last night, but obviously it wasn't full. But unfortunately, like I said, that rain continuing tonight doesn't look favorable. And that rain will generally continue because this area of low pressure is going to stick around. So it's going to be a bit of an unsettled week for most of us. That rain will continue as we head into Wednesday. Across Labrador, we're looking at the potential for some flurries in the mix as well. We still have that rain-snow mix line just to the southeast. So looks like Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and southeastern portions of Labrador will stay in that rain at this point, and eventually into Thursday we're going to see that in the mix, some snow in the mix rather, as we head through the day. The island looking like we'll see a little bit of a break in some areas. We could see a few peaks of sun, but also that rain along the west coast will move back in by Thursday evening. It looks like southeastern portions of the island will see some sunshine, and then that will generally continue as we head into Friday. So temperatures are going to stay a little bit mild as well. However, dipping into the 8 to 9 degree range for central and parts of the west coast, a little cooler for the southwest. Port of Basque only seeing a high near 4 degrees on Wednesday, staying in those double digits for eastern areas. Again, putting in a few peaks of sun in the mix. They're not going to be too numerous, but they'll still be there. And then across Labrador, you're looking at 5 to 9 degrees, the warmest through Happy Valley, Goose Bay. And again, that's where you're more than likely going to see that rain through Wednesday. As we head into Thursday, we're looking at those temperatures pretty similar, 8 to 10 degrees, so not really moving too much, and again staying unsettled. For Labrador, flurries a story along the coast, rain snow mix for northern areas of Labrador as well as Lab West, and then Happy Valley, Goose Bay are in that rain again through the afternoon on Thursday. Now, as far as the next couple of days goes for St. John's and Eastern Newfoundland, it looks unsettled, pretty much continuing through the weekend. We may see some peaks of sun, or at least some clearing skies on Saturday, back into those double digits. And then through Central, we're looking at a similar forecast. However, temperatures will be hovering around 9 to 10 degrees as we get to the end of, or at least the beginning of the weekend, the end of the work week. And then for Western Newfoundland, gray skies, unfortunately, that temperature will dip, it looks like, on Saturday down to the mid-single digits. And then across Labrador, at least eastern portions, gray skies and rain the story for you. A little bit of snow in the mix, though, for northern areas. And then Lab West, similar forecast, temperatures from 3 to 5 degrees with lots of gray skies. I wanted to share this photo. This was the sunrise in Muse today. Anne-Marie Kenny shared that with us. And if you have any weather photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Beautiful.
Yeah, from the pink of Bondi Beach to the orange of Muse. Very nice.
Lovely. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for spending part of your evening with us. Have a great night.
Good night.
Good night.